everybody. I love how friendly everybody. I need a bell.
Yo!
We need a little bell to start off. So good morning, everybody. Morning, Jackie. We're so happy you're here. So I wanted to start off really quick. I wanted to welcome a couple new people. We have in our third row Denise Treiber, who's come to us from Bakersfield Pregnancy Center. She was with them for 15 years, and now she's moved over here, and she's here with us for volunteering. So we're happy to have her. And then Therese Kingsley in the back row. Therese is a new advocate. She's here on Wednesdays, and we're so glad to have her. And both of these ladies go to Berean Bible Church, right? Berean Bible, that you both go there? Yeah. So, and then we have two gentlemen that are starting up with us. One is very, very sick today, so he wasn't. You know what, Joanne, you sit here because I'm going to need you. Will you help me with a role play today? Sure. Sure. You don't have to do much. We have a new gentleman starting with our men's team. His name's Alan Clark. Hopefully he'll be here next month, but he's real sick today. And we're real excited. He goes to Grace Bible. And then we had a new applicant who we think is going to make a great volunteer to join our men's team named Dan Maloney. Goes to Calvary Chapel. So the Lord has answered our prayer and is sending more guys for our men's team. So we're very thankful about that. And we're so glad everybody's here today. So do I have a volunteer who'd open us in prayer?
I would love to.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. Father, we are so thankful that you move in power in this world, Lord, and that your Holy Spirit is here and in each one of us. Thank you for the opportunity to work in this community. Lord, we just want to come before you right now. We ask that you be over this meeting, that you'd soften our hearts and open our ears, that we would retain what we need to retain, Lord, and that you just continue to build us, not only as soldiers, but as brothers and sisters to impact this community for you and for your son, and that we would just have that sensitive heart with truth and love. God, thank you for today. Thank you for LifeLine. In Jesus' name.
Amen. So thank you guys. Thank you everybody for being here. So a couple quick announcements, and then Tracy's going to come talk for a minute about some stuff in your lap. So let's see. So this coming Sunday, Tracy's going to be speaking at St. John's Lutheran Church, which is on the corner of Valley Road and Los Ferros Road. She's going to be at the 9:30 and the 11 o'clock service. And if anybody would like to come help her and hang out at the table with her and hand out baby bottles with her, she would appreciate somebody to go with her. So if you are available in that time frame or between the two services times, so between like 10:30 and 11, she would love the company. So you could talk to her after. We also wanted to mention that the golf tournament is coming up, not till June, but it's June 27th. So that's a Friday. So if you're available that day and can come out and help us, we'll need help early and then kind of in the middle of the day. There's going to be all kinds of different roles. Rich had a super fun time last year driving around in the golf cart handing out snacks all over the golf course.
Yeah, how many people you need to do?
So we need, well, Rich does it again. He's going to need someone to go with him. So it's a whole lot of fun. So we need lots of help with that. So if you can hit your calendar, that would be great. We just wanted to do a quick reminder. We're not doing a security training today. We have to do it once a year, but we're not doing it today. But we do have to remind everybody, and we have a lot of new folks. Some of the main security things are the front 3 doors that face the parking lot have to stay locked at all times. So if you come in and out of the door, all you need to do on the outside is push the little door lock emblem and listen for it till you hear a little and then it's done. And try the doorknob. I know, well, I hear it a lot, so I've gotten pretty good at it. I have 4 boys too, so I know cars. I'm good at it. You don't need to lock the handle on the inside. If you do that, we can't get in. So because if you lock that, then we can't get in with the code. So we almost had the whole team locked out last week because somebody pushed the locks.
I think
was that you?
That was probably me.
I didn't want to say it was the men's team, but
no, I'll
the men's team.
I wanted to be super secure.
Right.
And as I was doing it, I was like, this could lock them out. I was like, I don't
But
know.
the lights were great. Nobody messed with the lights.
The lights.
Always
Lights are
turn the lights off.
No, don't touch the lights. The lights come on and off. We have no touching of the lights. But yeah, you just have to push that little lock emblem on the doors. When you come in and out during the day, if you could please turn the lock, make sure it's locked behind you. And then the lobby doors are also locked. And the reason is if we had somebody come in that was a problem, we would be locked in the back. All Olivia would have to do is hop up, walk through her door and shut it and deadbolt it, and we would be safe in the back, and whoever we were concerned about would be confined to the lobby. So that's why this door here, the hallway door on the other side, and the hallway door at the back here have to stay locked at all times. So if you unlock it, make sure you lock it. If you take a client in, lock it behind them. If you go out into the lobby and come back in, please lock it. So we just need to keep those doors locked at all times. And if not, our board members, if they stop by and find it, we're all in big trouble. So we have to make sure that we gotta keep it locked. Also, we did send out that mandated reporter training. I do apologize for asking to do that, but it is something we all are considered mandated reporters. We did pick the shortest one for volunteers. It is not fun, I'm gonna tell you. It's not a fun training to do. It's really hard to talk about those things, but we do see evidence of things like that in our center. We have to be on it and aware. We don't want you to pay for it though. We weren't aware that there was a pay at the end to get your certificate. We don't need your certificate. If you get to the end of that training, just take a picture with your phone of that screen that says, okay, you're almost done. Just, pay this fee. Take a picture of that screen and email it to me, and I'll put it in your file. We don't want you to pay. If you did pay, we'll get you paid back, okay? So,
excuse me, Becky,
Yeah.
did you say you sent that out to us recently?
it came out an email,
When? was it?
about a week and a half ago.
Oh, I'll have to check.
If
it.
not, I can resend it. If you didn't
Okay.
get it, I'll resend it, and you can also do it when you're here. You don't have to do it at home. You can do it when you're here.
Okay.
And
It only
there's a
takes-
little button at the bottom that speeds her voice up.
Okay, good to
One
know.
point 5 times normal, 2
Oh,
times
good to
normal.
know. Oh,
Makes
that's
it go a
awesome.
little faster. You
Yeah.
can listen really fast because she said a lot of information
Now-
that you
now
just
you
listened
tell
Yeah,
to.
there you go, there you go. There's a hot tip right
And
there.
I know all that stuff. I used to teach it and it still took me a full
It's a
hour.
pretty informative course though.
It is very informative, it's just
An hour,
can be,
a full hour.
yeah.
But, you know, I didn't
Yeah.
read any of the legislative stuff. I just kept going.
Yeah, but it's something we do need to be aware of, so if you can take care of that, that's great. And then Tracy's gonna come up and share with us, we're gonna talk about this conflict resolution policy, so if you wanna pull this out, the board has asked us to go over this once a year. Yes.
Can I ask one more question?
Sure,
The golf tournament, how do you sign up for the golf tournament?
you
Can
just let me know, and I will put you on a list.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're gonna golf or golf or both?
Oh, well, I don't golf, but I know somebody that does, that wanted to be in the tournament, so I figured I should get
All
excited.
right, so we're gonna cover conflict resolution policy. And I like to say we're covering it because we don't have any conflicts at the moment that I'm aware of. So it's better to cover it when there isn't a conflict. I am not gonna read through the whole thing. It's first gonna refer to Matthew 18. If you're familiar with that, if you have an issue with somebody, you're gonna go directly to that person. If you're unable to resolve it, you're gonna take somebody with you, etc. So that's the gist of it. So you could look at that. There's a biblical principle in the second paragraph. So we're gonna kind of touch more on the procedure itself. So I know we all know what conflict is, and I'm sure we've all experienced conflict at some point, and I'm sure we've all had times where we felt like maybe it could have been handled better. I know personally I could have handled it, but this is such a great way to just settle in and know, okay, let me review Matthew 18 and what he says in that. So the first thing is each member of the board of directors, executive director, all staff, volunteers will sign the agreement. The agreement's in the very back page, so we'll do that in a minute. The original copy of this signed agreement will be placed in your folder. Number 2, Matthew 18 will be the standard conduct for all volunteers and staff. Therefore, this policy will be reviewed at the board meeting, and today, we're doing it today, and we did it as a staff already. If anyone at LifeLine has a concern regarding another person involved with LifeLine, that person will go directly to him, as I mentioned. And if the person is unsatisfied with the response, he or she will bring 1 or 2 additional LifeLine team members with him or her to speak to the person who they have a problem with. And if they're unsatisfied with the outcome of their turnover conversation, the person will complete the concern report. So there's a sample or actual concern report attached. And Becky's also has a file folder in her mailbox, a little mail folder, file folder by her door, that has concern reports in there. So at any time you can go take one and fill that out.
Do you want that turned into the confidential box?
You can turn it into the confidential box more, I would prefer myself, because I don't open the confidential box, that means staff will be, will see that, so if you prefer to put it in an envelope and put my name on it, then you could put it in there. And then it goes on to say, if your conflict is with me, then you're gonna wanna address that to the board of directors, okay? Then, let's see, number 4, no board member will speak with a staff member or a volunteer of the organization about any issue regarding the executive director before the staff member or volunteer has followed the procedures defined herein. And 5, in the event that a complaint has been filed maliciously and in bad faith, and I don't ever think that's gonna happen here, the filing of such a complaint shall be deemed to be a serious offense, and disciplinary action against the complainant will be considered. And then 6, all documents related to a conflict resolution process shall be retained by LifeLine for 7 years. So the next page is the concern report, so you'll have a copy as well. And the last page is what I need you to initial, and then sign the bottom, and you can put those on Olivia's desk as you leave today. So it says, 1, I have read LifeLine's conflict resolution policy. 2, I'm completely committed to adhering to LifeLine's conflict resolution policy and procedure. The next, I shall conduct myself according to the principles of Matthew 18 regarding conflict resolution of interpersonal relationships. Furthermore, I will accept responsibility for establishing and maintaining healthy interpersonal relationships with every member of the board, staff, and volunteer team as appropriate. I will establish and maintain a relationship of functional trust with the board of directors and every member of this staff and volunteer team as appropriate. My relationship with each board member, staff, and volunteer will be respectful at all times. I will not engage in the 3 B's, in case you don't know what they are. Bickering, backbiting, and blaming. In addition, if I hear a board member, staff, or volunteer doing so, I will remind them about our commitment to the Matthew 18 principle, and I will ask them to follow the procedures as defined in the conflict resolution policy. I will be committed to find solutions to the problems rather than complaining about them or blaming someone for them. And lastly, I will remember that none of us are perfect, and that human error provides opportunities for forgiveness and growth, not for shame and guilt. So, any questions? Great. Becky, you're back on. And I'm gonna open this door because it gets steamy in here. It gets steamy in here. My board meetings get really like, whoo.
That means they're too long, right?
Who wants to talk about sexually transmitted infections? Everybody, right? We all want to talk about it. Today we're going to be talking about something that a lot of people feel really uncomfortable addressing with clients. And I can relate to that. I felt really uncomfortable when I first started too. I did a few different trainings on the topic, and I actually had a pretty lengthy meeting with Dr. Litness about it, because there was a lot of times where clients were coming in and leaving as ignorant as they walked through the door. And that really bothered me, because we really want to be a source of education for them. Of course, our main goal is to share Jesus with them in whatever way, shape, or form we can. But we also want them to understand the risks that they are opening themselves up to. So the bottom line is, every single client that we see and do a pregnancy test for is sexually active. All of them, 100% of the time. 100% of the time. And a lot of times they are not in committed monogamous marriages. Every once in a while we get to have one of those, and that's a super fun little appointment. We're all real giddy, and it's really fun, and nobody's stressed because they're married and happy and they're excited to be pregnant, or they're sad that they're not pregnant, and we're there to comfort them. However, the majority of our clients are not in that case. The vast majority are not married. The vast majority are not in a committed relationship where it was them and their partner and nobody else, right? That's the vast majority of the time. So today we're going to go through, so up here there's 3 different teaching tools. These are located in our storage closet, okay? And so these were put together very intentionally, and over the next few meetings we're going to go through these because our advocates are using these on the regular. It's good to know what clients are learning. If you're not an advocate, if you're a dad coach, It's good to know what the women are being coached with, and also if you come into an ultrasound appointment, you may see these tools being used, or you may end up feeling prompted when you're talking to a young man. Here, I'll hold these up for you so you can see them in the back. Those of you that like to park yourselves in the back can't see as good. So we've got 3 different teaching tools here. In the closet, they are in containers that are labeled. They are not labeled here because we don't want it to walk out saying abortion-minded, abortion-vulnerable client. We're not gonna send this out labeled that way. But they are labeled in the closet, okay? So we have our positive pregnancy test gift bag. This is a teaching tool. This is not something that I'm gonna be like, here you go, thanks, have a great day. No, we're gonna go through every single thing in this with her, because I came to work here and I can't remember everything when I'm talking to her. I can't remember it. So I needed something to prompt me and to send with her, right? Because she's gonna hear every 3rd word that I say, right? She just found out she's pregnant. This one is for our abortion vulnerable, abortion minded clients, okay? So this one's gonna have information in it. We're gonna go through this a different day, because it's got a lot more in it. We'll go through this one next time. But today what we're gonna do is we're gonna go through our blue folder, which is our negative test folder. So when we have clients come in and they have a negative pregnancy test, we have a certain educational route we wanna go with them, okay? It goes a little bit beyond just telling her, you know, talking with her about abstinence. We wanna talk with her about her risk level. So everything in here is gonna be a teaching tool. So we're going to do our test, right? We're gonna go to the medical room. Eleanor or Richard will likely be there, and or actually Denise might be there too, because she's an RN. So we are going to take care of that test in the medical suite, and then we're going to walk back into the hallway. We're gonna ask her to go sit back on the couch where she sat before when we talked to her at the beginning of the appointment. And then we're gonna walk to the closet and we're gonna retrieve. We're always gonna go to the closet and we're always gonna retrieve something, if she had a positive test or a negative test. We're not gonna send her out with nothing. We're always gonna go through something. So if she's had a negative test, we're gonna go grab a blue folder, okay? She may be happy about it, she may be sad about it. So there could be a variety of responses with her. And so we're gonna go get that. The other thing that could come up in that scenario is, let's say there's a boyfriend in the lobby and she would like him to join her. So after we've grabbed our folder out of the closet, we went to the closet alone. Are we gonna take a client into our messy closet? No. Olivia's done a bang up job in there, keeping it really tidy and clean. But we don't want her to go to that closet. We don't want her seeing inside of there. We wanna send her to the couch. We wanna grab this, and then we wanna go to the door, unlock the door, invite him in if she's asked us to get him, and then we're gonna make sure that door gets locked. Do we want the client to lock the door?
Nope.
No, because she's probably not gonna lock it. She's gonna unlock it, she's gonna open it, she's gonna say come in, and then she's gonna shut it, and she's gonna go sit down. And we don't wanna have to remember another thing. So we wanna be the one to get the folder, and we wanna be the one to invite the boyfriend in if she's gonna have him come in, right? And then we're gonna sit down and we're gonna say to her something akin to, so how do you feel about that? You know, let her share how she feels. Let her talk about how she's feeling about that test. She might be like, oh, I'm so relieved, I totally dodged a bullet, I just really thought I was gonna be pregnant. Or she might be sad. She might be like, or she might be confused. She might be having symptoms. She might just be a little bit too early for that test to register as positive. But she might just be a little bit confused. She might not really quite be sure. But 100% of the time, unless she is in a married, committed relationship, we know that she is putting herself at risk. So we don't want her to leave without talking with her about that. So that's when we're gonna say, hey, well, I brought you some information, and I just wanted to go through that with you really quick. So, I'm gonna sit right here.
Becky, just one quick question about
Watch out.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
So if the case is that she's not pregnant, is that something that somebody comes to us and tells us that? I mean, we're not involved in that.
In the boutique, you mean?
No, I mean, like if we are becoming an advocate or, you
Yeah.
know, helping them.
Sure.
Just like if they say, oh, it's not registering, that's not something we're making a statement about, it's something that somebody tells us, because are we authorized to tell them that it's too early? I mean, and how is too early? I mean, I'm getting into a
Right.
gray area there. I don't know.
Sure. So, generally speaking, we have medical staff on site every day that we're here.
Okay.
once in a while, maybe Richard's on vacation, Eleanor's out of town, something like that, we might not have a medical person here. So generally speaking, either Eleanor, Richard, or Denise will be able to complete the pregnancy test and share with her the results. She witnesses the result. If it's inconclusive, and I can't speak for our medical folks, but when I've had an inconclusive test, when we do a self-test with a client, and I'll explain the difference there. Sometimes I'll do a second one just in case.
Okay.
Just in case the test is bad. We hope it's not, it's probably fine, it's more than likely accurate. But if she's really certain, if she's having a lot of symptoms, I have pulled a second one. So I don't ever dispose of the urine that we're using until, we have done that second test.
Okay.
But, however, generally speaking, if we have a negative test, they would have said, well, the test is negative. And then we would come in and we would sit down and we'd start talking about that at that point. There are two different types of pregnancy tests that we do. Okay, so if a medical person is here, they will use a little cartridge test. It's a medical grade pregnancy test. If a medical person is not here, legally we have to do what's called a self-administered test. And that is a different test. It's a dip test. And if you haven't been trained on that, please come let me know and we will go in together and do it. It just requires a little bit more urine and a little bit more time. You put it in for 15 seconds. It's like a little strip. It's just a long little strip. It's supposed to be environmentally friendly. And so you're gonna put that little strip in the urine, you're gonna count to 15, and you're gonna take it out and lay it down. You're gonna have to make sure the correct side is laying up. The first time I did that test, yes, I did it entirely face down because I didn't know which side was which, and we walked over and went, oh, nothing happened, because every time I do one for the first time, I do it wrong. That's just the history here for me. So it was a little embarrassing, but it was actually really entertaining once we flipped it over, and it was quite obviously very positive. So when we do that kind of test, it's because we need her to be the one to administer that test.
Sure.
And we have a disclaimer in our paperwork. So yeah.
If, sometimes they don't know how many weeks,
Right.
and if it's negative, do you ever say,
Come
if
back
you
in a
still
week.
have symptoms, please come back in
Yes.
2 weeks or
Yes,
something?
that's part of our, and we're gonna go through that in our
Okay.
folder. Everybody in your lap, you have one of these folders, and so this is what we're gonna go through right now. I'm gonna pretend that Joanne is my client, and we're gonna go through the folder. So I'm not gonna ask her how she feels, because we're gonna just assume that she feels very relieved. She's very relieved, she's ready to go on her way, and so we're gonna talk about, I'm gonna stand just so they can see me. I was
Well,
gonna
I
sit with
can
you.
turn
No,
mine.
you're perfectly
Okay.
fine. So I'm gonna go through this with Joanne. So I'm gonna say, okay, so I have some information for you, and you're gonna take this with you, but I wanted to go through it if that's okay. And usually they're gonna say, sure, no problem, unless they're like in a real hurry. If they're in a real hurry and you're not gonna, if they're like, well, no, I've really gotta go. Every once in a while we get one like that. That's like, I've gotta leave. I was gonna be here for 10 minutes and now I've been here for half an hour. So that's okay. We never wanna block the door and say you can't leave. I've gotta go through my folder because Becky said I gotta go through my folder. We're not gonna do that, no. So but
You can't
generally
leave.
speaking, we have plenty of time to do this. So we're gonna say, okay, so I'm gonna go through this with you just so you know what's in here. You can take it with you. So the first thing I'm gonna point out to you is I'm gonna say, you know, we do this with everybody. And I'm gonna pull this brochure. This is my favorite brochure ever. I love this brochure. And the reason is their eyes get so big when we go through it. So I'm gonna say to her, okay, so here's the thing. We're gonna talk about risk. And I want you to imagine, I don't want you to say it. Don't say it. But I want you to tell me, no, excuse me, I don't want you to tell me. I want you to think, if you had to put the total number of partners you've had your whole life, total number of sexual partners, and you were gonna write that in the box. I want you to have that in your mind. Don't tell me what it is, because I don't wanna know. And I really don't wanna know. And then I'm gonna open this up. So she's got it in her mind, and I'm gonna open it up to this really scary page with all the stick figures. Okay? So I'm gonna open it up like this. This is where their eyes get really, really big. And I'm gonna have her find her number in this column, which only goes to 12. And interestingly enough, that's a low number.
That's a low number.
That's a low number, okay?
For,
And
is
this,
that a low number for our clients?
Yeah.
You said?
yeah,
Okay.
I would say in culture in general, that's a
Yeah,
low number.
that, yeah.
So at the top it says, if every person has only the same number of partners as you. So at the very top, it's pretty simple. If it's you and you're with him and he's only been with you, you've been exposed to one person. But if you've been with 6, and he's been with 6, according to this chart, then her risk level is then, she's exposed herself biologically to 63 people. That's a lot of people. We wanna get down here to just like compound interest in a really ugly way, right? So we get down here to 12, it's just dots at this point, it's not even stick people, and that's 4,095. That's a lot of people. She thinks, well, it's only 12, it's not that many. Is it? It's a lot, right? You've exposed yourself to a lot. So then we're gonna flip, then we're gonna say, okay, so given that, and again, I don't know what her number is, so I'm not embarrassing her, but I'll tell you, every time I've done this, their eyes go like, or they'll go, oh my gosh. They didn't know, because this is not being taught at school. This is not being taught at school. So then, we're gonna flip back over here. This is the estimated number of new cases annually. This is new cases. So when you look at these scary numbers, chlamydia 4 million, genital herpes 572,000, gonorrhea 1.6 million, hepatitis B 14,000, HIV 36,000, HPV 13 million.
Oh.
Okay? There's a scary fact about that I'm gonna tell you in a minute. Syphilis 176,000, trick is 2 million. This is new cases diagnosed annually. That means these are the people that got tested. These are only the people that got tested. These are not the people living with these things year after year after year.
Can you pronounce the last word?
Trichomoniasis, I believe is how it's pronounced.
Trichomoniasis.
Trichomoniasis.
I don't know what that is.
It's a bacterial infection. Yeah, some of these are treatable. Some of these are treatable with antibiotics. Some of them are viral, and they live with them for the rest of their life. So, like herpes, for example, that they're gonna live with, it's a viral infection, it's gonna live in their nervous system, and they're gonna have it for the rest of their life. So, these are not the people that got herpes in 1998. These are the people that got tested and have it now, right? Only the people that got tested, most people don't, right? Most people are not going in and getting these tests. And so, that's a really scary fact if you've been exposed to 4,995 people. And that's where they are just kind of really, really quiet, right? So I usually just end that by saying, you know, it's really important that you really know what your risk factor is so that you can minimize that risk as much as you can. Really, the only way to do that is through abstinence. It's really the only way to protect yourself and getting STI tested. One of the really scary things about HPV, I want to just pop back to this. 13 million new cases a year, right? There is no test for men. Men have it, men are carriers, there is no test for men. So that's 13 million women, it's just women, right? HPV, you've heard about it in the news because a vaccine came out some years ago called Gardasil. Gardasil is I believe it's a 2 vaccine series, there's 2 vaccines in it. And it can be given to boys or girls, they usually give it in the junior high, early high school age. The tricky part about that is that it only covers a certain number of strains. There are many strains of HPV. It's mutating all the time. It only covers certain numbers of strains. And the goal was to minimize people's potentially getting cervical cancer. So women can get cervical cancer from it. A lot of us have heard of friends or people we know who've passed away from cervical cancer. It's very dangerous. And these aggressive strains can mutate rather quickly. It can cause changes in her pap smear within a very short amount of time, okay? So that's what they were trying to guard against. It's a very controversial vaccine. There's a lot of parents that will not, I'm one of them, I wasn't gonna do that. I wanted to educate my daughter. I didn't want her to rely on a vaccine that doesn't really protect her, but we've had girls come in and say, well, I don't have to worry about HPV. HPV, I don't have to worry about it, I got the shots. But that's not true. There are other strains that can cause other problems. They can share it with partners. Partners can share it with other people. So I have heard health experts say that it is endemic in the population. So if you have been with anybody that was not your spouse, if you've been with more than one person, the odds are at some point you probably had it. Now people's bodies can clear it over time, so you can have it at one stage and your body can clear it later, but you can't count on that. So it's really a dangerous one, and it's tricky because there's information that has gotten a little bit skewed. So girls think they're safe when really they're not. They're protected against a certain limited number of strains. And even then, a lot of us know that certain vaccines don't always work all the time. So we want to educate as much as possible. And how do we check for HPV? We do a pap smear. That's one of the things they're checking when they do pap smears on women. And a lot of women come in here and have no idea what that is. I had a 30-year-old woman who'd been going to Planned Parenthood for her health care her whole adult life, never once had been STI tested, never once had had a pap smear and didn't know what it was. So that was concerning to me. So we're gonna go over this with her, and then we're gonna talk with her about the need to be tested. So in your folder, if you open up your folder, the second page here, this is information, I believe we pulled it from the Mayo Clinic largely. I sat down with Dr. Lickness and we went over it. It says, STI testing, do you need to be tested? And it's important to point this out to her because we want her to know why she might need to get STI testing, because she might say, but I'm not having any symptoms of anything. I feel completely fine. My boyfriend's really clean. Can you see an STI on somebody? No. You can't, I mean, extreme cases, maybe, but the vast majority of times, I apologize for how small this is and the fact that you're all gonna need readers to read it, but this was the most comprehensive one I could find. Most of these signs and symptoms, they may have little or no symptoms at all. The vast majority of the time, they do not have symptoms. And even with things like what's really interesting, so for example, herpes complex, let's say, we have a girl who says, well, my boyfriend has herpes, but he's not having any outbreaks, so it's fine. There is something called viral shedding. She's absolutely at risk. This is also, herpes is a skin-to-skin contact. Do condoms cover everything? No, they don't. So even with a condom, we always use condoms, even with a condom. She is at risk because herpes is a skin-to-skin contact. It's also transmitted, it's also, it's transmitted even if they are not having an active outbreak, they can have viral shedding. So it's not as simple as putting on a condom. And that's what they're being told in school, just have safe sex and then you'll be safe. And that's not true, unfortunately. So this is a really comprehensive little guide. And again, I am sorry about the small print, but it kind of goes over, but most of them shows no signs. Most of them shows no symptoms, doesn't have symptoms, no signs or symptoms. So they're not going to necessarily know if they're with somebody who has an STI, unless they've been tested. That's really the only way. And so that's something that we want to educate her about. We want to kind of read through this, be really familiar with it. So if you feel like you need to point out some things, but the main thing that I like to point out to girls is that STI testing isn't just one thing. She might say, well, I was STI tested last year. I had a urine test. Well, urine only tests for certain STIs. It doesn't comprehensively test for STIs. So she really didn't have comprehensive STI testing. She was maybe tested for one or two things. Yeah.
I just want to mention on herpes that it is transferred orally as well,
Correct.
which it does say on there.
Yes.
And then also, I had a baby, had to have early cesarean because of an active lesion, because it can transfer and even kill the baby.
Right.
I mean, it can get that bad.
Yeah. And so with our mamas that are pregnant, that are gonna go to the doctor, thankfully, they're gonna comprehensively test them, which is really good. So we may go over this information with her if she's gonna go, if she's pregnant. If she's not pregnant though, we need to go over it with her because she may not think she needs to go to the doctor. I'm not pregnant, therefore I don't need to go to the doctor. So we definitely want her to know that there are different types of tests. So when I sat down with Dr. Lickness and I said, okay, so when we send people for STI testing, let's say they go to this location and they only do urine testing, right? So how do we make sure, and he was explaining to me that they need to have a blood test, they need to have a urine test, they might need an oral swab. There's genital swabs, rectal swabs, things like that, so like a pap smear also, and a physical exam, because some things you can see them visually, a provider can see them visually. I said, so, okay, let me say what I'm hearing you saying. What I'm hearing you saying is she needs to go to an OBGYN or a nurse practitioner or a physician's assistant to have this done. And he said, bingo, yes, that's what she needs to have done. So our standard recommendation for every client that comes in this building for any reason, right, is we want you to go to the doctor. We want you to go to the doctor. We want you to see a medical provider. But in this case, she might not think she has to because she just had a negative test. She dodged a bullet. Let's make sure she uses a condom next time, right? So what we wanted, or she's gonna go hop on birth control that she can pick up without having to see anybody. So what we want her to understand is that it's super important to protect her health, her future, her partner. First of all, it's best if she's not having sex. If she's not married and in that committed relationship, it's really best to protect herself that way. It's the only sure way. But in the meanwhile, she's gonna need to get herself tested, even if she doesn't have any symptoms, because she probably wouldn't know if she had one or not. Most people are pretty shocked when they do find out that they have one. And then it kind of goes over what the results mean and what happens if she has a positive test. Of course, her medical provider at that point is gonna treat her in whatever way they can. Again, some things can be treated with antibiotics. For some of the viral ones, there are viral antiviral medications that they can be on that can prevent outbreaks and discomfort, things like that, or transmitting it to other people.
Is it very easily covered by insurance or?
Yeah, typically covered by insurance. Medi-Cal covers it entirely. And most of our clients are on Medi-Cal, so it's definitely something that they can access. They just have to make an appointment. Yeah.
A lot of that's similar advice that you would give to a male client as well, right?
Correct, yeah.
As
Yeah.
difficult as that may be, it's like a lot of
Yeah.
different.
Yeah, and I would
They
say
use
that's
to
definitely
do.
something you can talk to the guys about, because they are probably as uneducated as she is, and I don't know about you guys, but I know my husband hates going to the doctor, so our young guys definitely don't think they need to go to the doctor. They feel fine, they don't see a problem, they don't know that they have anything.
I don't see any wrong.
And meanwhile, right, so, this is definitely something that you could work into a conversation if you wanted to. We have these brochures in the closet. We can always pull that information, but we want them to leave more educated, than they are. We also, in every single one of our folders, have a courtesy list of physicians. We aren't recommending any of these physicians. This is in every teaching tool we have. So this is across the board in all of these teaching tools, because we always want them to go see a physician. Generally, what I have found, it's very hard for them to get into an OBGYN office. It's really difficult, unless they're already established. But they might be able to get in sooner at CHC. They might be able to get to see somebody quicker, especially if they're flexible on which office they can go to, or they can get on a cancellation list. So if they feel like they need STI testing pronto, they can probably call CHC and get in quicker. There are some STI, on the back side, there's some walk-in locations where you don't need appointments. The only thing I don't know is how comprehensive that testing is. I suspect it's not entirely fully comprehensive. So I recommend, Dr. Litness's recommendation and what he emphasized to me was that we want them to get in with a care provider and establish care with somebody so that they have somebody to go to if they have a problem. And then the last thing that we're gonna go through with her, and we're gonna actually send this with her, this is our recommendation. So this is super important that we go over with her line by line so she understands what we're telling her to do. It's the negative pregnancy test form. And so what we're going to tell her is that you have received a negative pregnancy test today, okay? So that can mean one of two things. One, that you are not pregnant, or two, you are pregnant, but it's too early to show on the urine pregnancy test, or is not showing for some other reason, although that can be rare. There's several reasons why you might miss a period, including, but not limited to, sudden weight gain or weight loss. We have had ladies come in here who have had weight loss surgery. They've lost a ton of weight and their periods got really irregular. Or they've been on Ozempic and their periods got really irregular because of it. Ovarian cyst, metabolic conditions, alterations in blood sugar or certain hormone levels. Some ladies will come in with something called polycystic ovarian syndrome. It's very common. A lot of us have friends who've struggled with it. That can cause metabolic changes. That can cause them to have periods every 3 to 4 months, if at all. So that can be a problem for some ladies. And that also happens with our negative or our positive test, where she hasn't had a period for 4 months. And she's come in and now she thinks she might be pregnant because she's starting to have symptoms, but when did she conceive? Because we don't know. We've got a 4-month window. So she could be very, very, very pregnant or not very pregnant at all. So it's always kind of up in the air for us. Recent illness, if she's been really, really sick. Stress wreaks havoc. Every woman in the room can say that. Thyroid conditions, certain birth control methods can cause her to not have her period. That can happen. We've had ladies come in with that. That's why we ask the question, have you been on any hormonal birth control methods? Because that can throw her off. Certain medications, perimenopause and menopause. So a lot of times we think of that in older ladies, but perimenopause can start around age 35 for some ladies. It can start rather early. So we get ladies in here. The oldest client I've had is 44 years old. So, those two things can come into play, or obviously pregnancy can cause you to miss your period, obviously. And then we wanna go over with her our recommendations for you, okay? So we're gonna recommend that you schedule an appointment with a physician to confirm that you are not pregnant and determine your reason for your missed periods. Because if she's missing periods and she's not pregnant, there might be something else going on, so it's good for her to go. Number two, if you don't get your period within 1 week and you don't have any menstrual symptoms like cramping or bleeding, you're welcome to come in again and we'll do the test again next week. We've had girls do that. I'm like, you know what, why don't you come back next week if you still don't have your period, we'll check it again. Additionally, and this is the big one, this is the one we're wanting to get to. If you've not had a pap smear or STI or STD testing in the last year, we recommend that you schedule an appointment with a physician for those tests. Testing is recommended annually, in addition to every time you have a new sexual partner. Of course, we're recommending that she not add sexual partners, right? But that's what the recommendation is. Does anybody know why we call them STIs instead of STDs anymore? Anybody know?
Well, it says down here STI/STD,
Right.
but you're saying we're not doing STD?
Well, STI, sexually transmitted, you wanna say, Lori? Go ahead.
Yeah, just the rhetoric is that an infection is not a disease and that it's completely curable and they'll be fine if they get one.
Right,
It
right.
lessens the whole risk
Right.
factor.
But they also apply it to things that are chronic. There are, like herpes can be chronic, things like that. But those are still, they're viral infections. So they are
Right.
infections. So they've changed the language over the years. When I was in school, they called them
disease.
STDs. Some people still refer to them that way. That's just a little side note. So we really want her to understand that we want her to do that. And so then we fill out the bottom of this form. There's another copy of this form for you folks that are advocates in the folder that you're gonna get. You wanna fill out that copy and keep it in the folder so we know we gave it to her. Okay, and we're gonna send this with her. We're gonna send all this information with her. And there's also another brochure in here. You can point it out to her. It says, what a great gift. And it really talks about God's plan for sex. So this is a great thing to point out to her and to say, this is a way that you can be safe and protected, and also, and then just, we can even point out, we are a Christian organization, has anyone ever shared the gospel with you before? And if she goes, I don't know, what's that? And say, well, the gospel is really good news, and then you can launch into that little discussion, have you ever gone to church before? Or, and kind of branch into that conversation if you have the time. That's really something. And then of course we always want to end by praying with her. Is it okay if I pray with you? And if you didn't feel like you had an open door to talk about the gospel, you can pray it in your prayer. You can pray how much Jesus loves her. You can pray that God went, sent his son to die for her. You can pray it in your prayer as well. So that's something that we want to always try to end with. We want her to feel really good and really empowered when she leaves, and give her things to think about. You don't have to be an STI expert. I certainly am not. You don't have to be an expert. You just have to know a little bit, so that when she brings up the common things that they bring up, which is like, well, but I'm only with guys that are like clean, and and I don't use condom. I'm really careful about that. And, all of those things. You can point back to the information that we know. And one of the things that I recommend to everybody on Bright Training, which everybody has access to, on Bright Training, so on our Bright Course program, we do our client videos, but there's a little training tab called Bright Training. And when you click on Bright Training, you can go and find, some of you remember a few years ago, we had Pam Stenzel come and speak at our banquet. She is hilarious. She's very good at educating. All of her trainings are really entertaining. I can say that everybody who has watched the sexual health and relationship education training at some point has had the headphones on, and they are laughing loud enough for me to hear them in my office.
Right.
Because when she talks about condoms and the ridiculousness of the instructions that Planned Parenthood tells you should follow, that no one's going to do all of these steps. It's totally ridiculous. People are laughing so hard they're crying. So, but it's under Bright Training. It's the SHARE training, sexual health relationship education. I think there's 5 or 6 sections to it. They're only about 10-15 minutes a piece. Well worth your time, because she makes it very practical and accessible and easy to talk about. And the more this is one of those things that when I came to work here, I thought, I gotta get good at talking about this, because this is an uncomfortable topic to talk about. So I taught my dad all about STDs. We talked all about it. He kept going, don't say, I didn't know that, really. You know, it was a really, you know, I've talked to my kids about it, I've talked to my husband about it, I've talked to everybody I can talk to about it, and it becomes a lot more natural the more you do it. And when you're only here once a week and you only have a negative test maybe every so many months, it's hard to remember. But if you start sharing it with people and teaching it to them, it becomes a lot easier. Do we have any other questions?
What was the lady's name you mentioned in the training?
Pam Stenzel. And if you're here and you wanna hop on and do that training, let me know and I can help you find it. It's pretty easy to find. Stenzel, S-T-E-N-Z-L-E, I think is how she pronounces her name.
Okay, thanks.
She has several trainings on there,
Okay.
and they're all very, very, very good. I do recommend all of hers. Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm thinking about it from the guy's side, so obviously there's two sides to this, and the guy needs to get tested also.
Yes,
And so if it's a non-pregnancy, and she invites the boyfriend in, that opens the door to talk to him about it as well. But
absolutely,
if she chooses not to invite him in,
right.
then we would probably need to go grab a blue folder and educate him.
Yeah, or, you know, I was thinking about that, we could actually come up with a separate one for the guys that has just the information specific to the guys and not so much the pregnancy test, because if she's pregnant and she's gonna go get tested for everything, right? Whether or not they're gonna recommend for her to tell him to get tested is a
Yeah.
whole other thing.
That's what I was thinking,
So,
like, it
as I was talking, I was kinda thinking it might be nice to have a separate, little resource you guys could grab and have handy if you needed it. Yeah,
guys
so
need
we'll
to be
work on that.
responsible for sure.
Yeah.
And like definitely something like, do it, man.
Right, well, and especially if he has active infections and she's pregnant, she gets treated, she's pregnant, he could reintroduce it to her again. We don't want that to happen either, right?
I just had a question, you know, one of the things we're overlooking, and maybe I'm dating myself, but when my parents were gonna have children, they had to have blood tests. Because there's a lot of, you know, problems can happen with babies, is that still the case?
Yes.
And, you know, I think the stress.
Well, not necessarily for the fathers, but for the ladies, when they go to their OBGYN, they're gonna get a huge lab slip. And they're gonna have to go get tested for all kinds of things.
But I mean,
Go ahead, Tracy.
doesn't the father also contribute to that, like the RH and all? And I was just thinking, you know, the baby can have some kind of problems, right? I mean, does that still happen out there?
It can, but that's where the physician's gonna be guiding her.
Okay.
They're gonna assess her risk when that's why we want her to get in front of a doctor.
Okay,
Because we aren't physicians, Dr. Lingus doesn't meet with patients here. So all of those things are things she's gonna find out with her, they're gonna test her
Sure.
for all kinds of.
but I mean,
things.
is this something that we should be explaining to her as well, as long with the STDs? Aren't there also potential health issues that can come from, you know, or we don't go that far?
We don't quite go that
Okay.
far, we give her the kind of 10,000-foot overview, and then
Okay.
we want her to go to the doctor.
Got it, okay.
Go ahead, Tracy.
So what I believe Teresa's asking is, and it used to be when you get your marriage license, you had to have a
Right.
blood test prior to that. That is no longer the case.
Yeah.
So they don't have to be tested to be married,
Correct,
or to get a marriage license.
correct.
Cause nobody would pass a
Yeah,
test.
they don't do, they don't do that anymore. Question, I saw another hand, was there another hand?
Well, I was just gonna say, a lot of people don't realize that if your client is perimenopausal or menopausal, if they're on metformin, which they're not told, it can cause them to ovulate.
Mm.
Cause I'm a former diabetes educator.
Yeah.
And we had some ladies that were coming in pregnant that had reached that age, and they said, the doctor never told me, so.
Yeah.
And young women also have it, are on it, not necessarily for metformin, but for, polycystic ovarian
Right.
issues. So,
Right.
just so you know, if you have somebody saying, I couldn't be pregnant, I'm 45,
Right.
well, they're on metformin.
Well, there's a lot of babies walking around today whose mothers thought they were far enough along, their hormones were wonky, they thought, well, I must be in menopause, and they sure enough, I mean, we've all heard of ladies that up in their upper 40s, you know. Dr. Kevin Lehman, who does some of our videos, his last baby was born when his wife was 47. So, I mean, that would be a bad day for me, but, you know, like, that can happen. So we can have older clients come in. I did have one really cute, sweet little couple that came in, and, they didn't speak a whole lot of English, but we got enough across, right? And when she had the positive test, she looked up at me and she said, how did this happen? She was in her 40s, she had older children, and I said, do you want me to explain it to you? Yeah, so she was super cute. Their baby was due on Christmas Day, so that was kind of cute.
I have a friend who had her first and only child at 49. Her
Oh my God.
husband was 53.
Yeah,
Wow.
so it can definitely happen. Lately in the news, there's been some celebrities that are having babies at 50, and I'm like, wow, you are gonna be so tired. I can't believe it.
Well,
Okay,
that's where
other
you can
questions?
share the Bible where they talk about Abraham.
Yeah.
so-
Right, yeah, into old age, right,
Biblical.
right? Any other questions, any other questions?
I just wonder, is there a place where we say is, you know, given all this information, is there any changes you're gonna make in your lifestyle? What do you think about this, you know?
Yeah, I mean, you're welcome to, you're welcome to talk to them about it. I don't typically ask them that, but that's not out of the realm of something that
Right.
you could ask them.
I mean, bottom line,
yeah.
I'm thinking about our numbers where they
Yeah.
ask about, like,
Sure.
you know, have we given this information out
Yeah.
to people?
Absolutely, yeah, so we
STI.
definitely are gonna document that in our notes, we're gonna document that we went over this with her.
Yeah,
That's
okay,
gonna be in our check boxes.
yeah, so every time they get
Yeah,
a negative
so I
test,
mean, if
those
you feel
numbers go.
led to
Yeah.
kinda ask her, like, do you think you might make some changes now? That's not a bad question to ask at all. I just haven't ever asked anybody that directly, but you
Yeah.
absolutely could if you felt like you had that. We wanna build relationships, so sometimes you might feel like, oh, she's not really talking to me very much, or she's really shut down, or, you know, or maybe she's kinda gone to a place of shame or whatever, so it depends on where you're at with her. If she's talking to you and you feel like there's a connection there, you might feel more comfortable asking questions more directly, but if she's a little, go ahead.
And you can keep those open-ended, like, lots to think about.
Yes,
right?
yeah,
You know, kinda put it back.
yeah.
Oh, I was gonna mention this at the last meeting, but then I thought I'd bring it up today just for an heck of it, is, you know, I went through a training in my 20s in a Christian church, and one of the things they talked about is that active intercourse is actually becoming one, literally, and also spiritually.
Right.
And I think that from a spiritual perspective, a lot of people just think, you know, it's recreational, it's just fun, it's just a one-night stand. But it's actually joining yourself with another person, it's spiritually. And that can, some people believe that that has a lifelong effect,
Yeah.
that you joined yourself with those 18 people.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
I don't know in what context that would be appropriate to share with a client, but, I just thought that was fascinating when I learned that, and that really helped me.
Yeah, yeah,
In
and I
my
think
20s.
if we have a client who comes in and is professing to be a Christian, and they're not walking that out, you know, we might have an open door to kind of branch into conversations like that, you know, it's like, I noticed you said, you know, earlier you said you were a Christian and you go to that church, that's so awesome, you know, how do you ever think about your faith when you're engaging in these kinds of things? You might, there may be some ways to bring it up. That's definitely gonna be a conversation between you and the Holy Spirit when you're having that conversation, for sure.
I just
Yeah.
had one quick question to kind of tangent off that. You mentioned that most of the clients are on some sort of assistance, correct, Medicare?
Our data shows us that the vast majority are, you know, either on Medi-Cal or
Medi-Cal.
eligible for Medi-Cal, so
So
that means
they're
they're low income.
Low income.
Yeah,
So when you take a look at a person's situation like that, a lot of these women, I would suspect, depend on a man to help support them in some way, even if they're not in a
It
committed
depends.
relationship,
Yeah,
right?
it depends, sometimes they aren't, but, yeah, or they're still
I was
with
just
their
thinking of
parents,
kind of attacking it from both ends, so to speak, is that you mentioned that there might be some other areas to help these women because,
Mhm.
you know, they're like walking a tightrope right now and they need the support and they're scared both ways, you know, another life's
Sure.
coming in and how do I support this? What if he dumps me? Where do
Sure.
I go? So I think you had mentioned in some resources that might be available.
Yeah,
Like if she feels like, oh wow, you know, this is a tough thing to do.
yeah,
I need that safety net.
right,
You know, how can we help them a little bit more, you know?
Yeah, so resources, that's something we did do a big training a couple months ago about that. That we have access to a binder that's in the admin room that has all of the resources that we have in our database. And I had it printed out, so if you wanna flip through and look at the different types of things that we can refer her to. And then we have it in a database where we can actually text it to her phone. You're welcome to make a copy of it and hand it to her in there, but we can also, or to the gentleman, but we can also, if you let us know, we can text it directly to her phone. So if housing is an issue, if medical is an issue, if food instability is an issue, if she is pregnant and she wants to know about breastfeeding, if she, doesn't have childcare, all of those things are available in our community where they can get support and resources for that. So we can text it right to her. If you feel a little overwhelmed in the appointment and you want some help on that end, like she's got a lot of needs and I'm not really sure, you can pull me into the room or Tracy into the room and we can help.
Okay.
We can help you with that.
Okay.
So that's kind of I'm a little nerdy in that area.
No, I think it's great,
resources.
to help
Training and
them.
resources, those are my favorites. You're so lucky.
The good
Listen
news
to all our
is you're
training.
never alone here, there's other people here who can.
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah, and there's buttons in the room on the wall, some of the toddlers find them more often than not, but the button, you push the button on the wall, that can be for if there's an emergency and you need some help, if they're talking about suicide or child abuse or something where you need another body in that room, or you just need someone to come in and help with resources, or let's say the conversation goes into talking about abortion procedures and she's got questions and you don't feel equipped. I mean, we're gonna go through all that over the course of this year. We have several really good trainings lined up. That could be a push the button and I come in and go, hey, most of the time it's the 2-year-old push the button and go,
Yeah.
hey, and they know we're good, or we need help with the TV or something like that, but those buttons are in there for just that occasion. So, yeah. Last call, any questions? Okay, would anybody like to close us in prayer today? And we're gonna swap prayer requests. If you haven't had a chance to put your prayer request in, now's the time. If you'd like a card, just put your hand up and we'll get you one.
And when is it, we're gonna talk about the chemical abortion?
I believe we're gonna do that in April. That's when I have it scheduled, is in April. We're gonna go over the abortion pill. We did it about a year and a half ago. We're gonna go over it again because a lot of people are new. A lot of people were absent, so we're gonna go through that. Anybody need a prayer
Do you
request?
want these folders back?
Yes, if you don't need to take this home, if you've gone through it, if you could hand them back to me, we will use them with clients. If you'd like to hang on to it so you can go through it more, that's fine. But if you don't need it and you wanna hand it back to me, you can, that would help us out.
Vicky, do you want this in the folder? or-
No, the
Outside
colored
the
chart
folder?
that I gave you, the STD chart, that's for you. Yeah, that's for you
For
to take.
enjoyment.
Yes, for your.
Yeah, should we pray?
Okay, Lori's gonna pray for us, everybody. Please pray.
And remember, return in that signed one.
Yes.
God, thank you for this day and for this time, and we just thank you for this information, and we just pray that you'd help us to use it wisely and well, and to love, the people around us, and thank you for these opportunities, God. And we just know that you have the very, very best for us and for our clients, for the people that we love and around us, and we just pray that we could share all these things in love and with your Holy Spirit. And yeah, just bless everybody today and this week, the rest of this week, as we've taken time out of our days here to come here. Just pray that you go with everyone and just continue to bless this ministry and all that we are a part of. Thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank
So I'm
you,
gonna pass
everybody.
these around. If there's somebody that you've never met before, spend some time getting to know them too if you can. So, if you put in a prayer request, make a prayer request, so, start here. And anybody in the front row?